Good morning, Kasturian. Today we are going to study sexual reproduction in plants and structure of a flower. So, reproduction in plant. The reproduction in plant occurs through flowers. Flowers is the sexual reproduction part of the plant. It has two essential walls. One is androecium, which is the male part, and the other is gynoecium, which is the female part. A flower too has some non-essential part which does not take place in reproduction, but they have some accessory function, like we have sepals and petals. These are the non-essential whole which do not take part in reproduction directly. The sepals, which is green in color, usually protects the whorl, the gynoecium and androecium during the bud condition, and the petal, which is colored usually attracts the insect for pollination. So, the essential whorls of flowers, which are the reproductive whorls of flower, are androecium, the male part, the gynoecium, the female part. Androecium, being the male part, produces pollen grains and contains male gametes, while the gynoecium, which is the female part, contains or produces ovules, which is the female gamete. A flower can be bisexual or unisexual. Bisexual are the one which has both the whorls, androecium and gynoecium, present in the single flower, while the unisexual flower is the one which has only one at a time. Each individual member of androecium, called as stamen, which has anther on the top and it is connected with a filament. I'll zoom it for you. Here you can see this is the structure of a flower. This is a gynoecium, while these are the androecium. The androecium has the upper part, which is known as anther, and it is connected with a long stalk known as filament, and together they are known as stamen. The colored part is petal, and the gynoecium is having three parts. The upper part, which is the platform for an insect or anything good to sit over here, or where the male gametes or like anthers drop, is known as stigma, and it travels through the style, which is a filamentous structure, and the downward swollen structure is ovary, which has ovules in it. Together all three parts is known as pistil. The green part is known as sepals, and this is a receptacle, the swollen part, which later on turned out to be the bud upper part, and it is connected to the branch with a stalk. Now we came across to the pollination. The pollination in flowers is of two kinds. Self-pollination, which is also known as autogamy. Auto means self and gamy means crossing. While we have cross-pollination, which is done by several factors like insect, air, and so on. It is also known as allogamy. In self-pollination, the transfer of pollen grains takes place from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower of the same plant. Like one flower is present upside and the other part of other flower is present downside. While if we talk about cross-pollination, the transfer of anther to the stigma of the another flower takes place, and we are having so many pollinating agents which plays a role in the cross-pollination, and these are wind, water, insect, birds, bat, etc. After the pollination or this self pollination or cross pollination occurs, fertilization occurs. What is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of male and female gamete, which is known as fertilization. So let's study the fertilization in the diagram. You can see here all the accessory part, which were the petals, sepals, they drop out, and we are left with the gynoecium. The pollen grains, which are released from the anther, come and sit over the stigma, and from here some factors are released by the stigma of the gynoecium, and pollen grain produce pollen tube, which pass through the style, and it has two male gametes, and they are also known as sperm cells. We have two sperm cells in one pollen grain. Later on, when the pollen tube reaches towards the ovule, these sperm cells fuses with the ovules present inside the ovary. Then there is a formation of embryo sac. In an embryo sac, double fertilization usually occur in angiosperms. Here the fusion of this is the synergids, this is the egg apparatus, and we have egg over here, and this is the pollen tube. Pollen tubes drop one sperm cell to the egg and the other to the center one cells, where pollen nuclei are formed, and on the other hand we have antipodals. You can see over here, this is fertilization. Hope you have understand it. That's all for today. Thank you.